Hi, my name is Peter Gudzinski. I work for a company called MaxScheduler. We're continuing our web series for manufacturers and printers about software challenges they faced in their businesses. We want to share our experiences. MaxScheduler is scheduling. We're a scheduling software business. We've been doing it for 15 years. We've helped companies schedule around 300 million tasks. Myself, I'm a scheduling expert and product manager. My LinkedIn profile is there. Today's chapter is about types of schedules that can be used in a manufacturing setting. I think a good place to start would be a definition of a schedule. We define it as an assignment of tasks to resources for a specific date and time. A schedule should be a realistic prediction of future work. Splitting this a little, or getting into the details here a little bit, a task could be a job, a maintenance task, or a customer visit. A resource could be machine, people, teams of people, etc. And what you're usually doing is you're say assigning a job to machine or to people to start at a specific time. There's three types that we're going to get into. One is kind of a regular run-of-the-mill basic scheduling. Another is schedule of routed tasks. And then a third one is an idea that we've come up with or we've seen in the workplace called queue scheduling. So let's do the first one, which is basic scheduling. We just went over the definition, so I'm not going to get into that again. Basic scheduling kind of adheres to that definition that we discussed. It's kind of what you expect of a typical schedule. Here we have an example. This is MaxScheduler, but this is kind of common. You'll see in many scheduling software products. Here the resources are the columns. We have machine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the rows represent time. The colored blocks represent tasks that have been assigned to those jobs, and there are details about the jobs on those little colored blocks. The area at the bottom, that's kind of a feature of MaxScheduler, which are jobs. This kind of a queue of jobs to be scheduled. To schedule something, you simply drag it and drop it onto the board. And this is kind of a typical run-of-the-mill schedule. This could look similar to a doctor's office. The next type of scheduling we're going to get into is of routed tasks. An explanation of routed tasks. What that would be is, say you're building something complex, like a car. You'll need to carry out a series of steps which make up what they call a route. If you want to create a schedule to complete that entire object, like say a car, you will need to plan out each of the tasks, i.e. plan out the route. And each route is a kind of an assignment of a job for a specific assignment of a job to a resource for a specific date and time. Here's an example, going again back to MaxScheduler, give you an idea of what a scheduling of routes could mean. Here we have kind of two jobs or two things you're making. One, I guess you'd call it the red object, and another one is the blue object. We can think of like a red car or blue car. And the theory is that when you're working on the red car, you need to first finish task 1. When it's completed, then you can move, and that's assigned to machine 1. Then you have a task that starts at machine 2, and then a task that starts at machine 3. Typical for scheduling of routes, you get this kind of staircase effect. And often you can't start one task until you've completed the previous one. In some cases, you can start them earlier. For example, if you were making a batch of, say, 10,000 bolts, once you started creating a certain number of those bolts, you probably can move on to step 2. Scheduling of routing gets quite complex because of the potential variations. For example, the idea that whether you can start one task before the previous is done or not, that's always an option or a question. Another example that makes scheduling of routes difficult is, say, you move, say, the first step in the route. How is that going to affect the cascade of steps underneath it? How are they going to find open spots and also respect that staircase in terms of, one task needs to be completed before the next can start. In MaxScheduler, we actually do not support routing, what happens, you can support routing if you're open to scheduling each task individually. You're not able to make kind of macro changes based on routes. And the reason we kind of stay along these lines is that we want to keep MaxScheduler as a simple, easy-to-use scheduling product, kind of to help people who are using spreadsheets or wallboards and want to step up to a computerized tool, but something they can get going quickly. With routes, as soon as you start getting the idea of routes, then people start saying, well, actually, I'd like your scheduling software to store all our product information. We want to store the routes in the software and then just be able to schedule each route quickly. And that kind of starts slowly turning our software into kind of a much more complex tool, and slowly, I think, gets us down the path of turning into an MRP product. The third type that I want to get on today is queue scheduling. Queue scheduling is the idea is sometimes people or sometimes manufacturers actually don't want to adhere to that idea, that definition of scheduling in terms of assigning a task to a resource for a specific date and time. The key part here with queue scheduling is you don't care about the date and time. You're kind of maybe a good way to explain this is an analogy to lineups at McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's and there's a kind of a crowd at the checkout counter, so what you can do is there may be 3 lineups and you join a line, and it is a schedule to a certain degree. You don't know when you will be served. All you know is that you're the third in line. And for some manufacturers, they have such turnover, such quick-moving schedules that what they want to do is just create lineups of work to the resources. And they don't get into the details of, durations for each job. Each job kind of has, just takes up a certain amount of time. And they're, like, for example, we have one customer that is in the business of, they do quality assurance on bolts. They check a tremendous number of bolts, in fact, around 4 million a day. And they have all these machines, about, I think it's maybe 16 machines, and all they're doing is manually managing lineup of work into those machines, and they're just constantly, watching over those lineups as, priorities change, as the lineups shift, as the lineups complete. And, actually, let me show you an example of this type of schedule. Here's an example. So we have 5 machines. Again, we're referencing MaxScheduler again. Here we have 5 machines. Each row, the rows now don't have date and time. We've just numbered them in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we just know that for machine 1, there are 4 jobs scheduled. For machine 2, there's 2, and again for machine 3. There's a value here in that it helps people keep on top of this work. And you can do things like color code the jobs to identify priority, for example, and then you could shift the lineups. You could change them and say, oh, well, we have 20 jobs assigned or lined up for this machine, but we're going to throw this one near the front of the queue because that's an important one that needs to get done soon. So that's our overview of the 3 types of scheduling. That's the end of this chapter. Thank you for your time. If you have any comments, questions, or interest in MaxScheduler, our scheduling software, please reach out to us at maxscheduler.com. Have a good day.